Welcome back to ICC. We're almost at the finish line with the last round of the Olympiad happening tomorrow. But before we look ahead, let's unpack the drama of today's round 10. In the open section, we saw the massive showdown everybody was hoping for as Team India took on Team USA on the top board. And boy, was it an exciting match! India's superstars Gukesh and Erigaisi won their matches on board 1 and board 3 to deliver a crucial victory for Team India. With this team win, the Team India guaranteed their first place and made history, clinching their first Olympiad title with a round to spare. Huge congratulations to Team India for their dominant performance. But the rest of the teams still have a lot to battle for as silver and bronze are still up for grabs. Team China solidified their second position as they defeated last Olympics champions, Team Uzbekistan, and other top matches of the day ended in draws. We had Hungary-Serbia and Armenia-Ukraine ending with a 2-2 result. With those matches though, this cleared the path for Team Slovenia, who managed to pull off another huge upset after they defeated 5th seed Netherlands. This comes only a day after they defeated Magnus Carlsen's Team Norway. What an incredible drama in today's round! Let's take a look at some games and see how it all happened. For the first game of our recap, we're of course going to take a look at the India versus USA match. On the board, we have World Championship challenger Gukesh as he's taking on former World Championship challenger Fabiano Caruana. So far, it had been a pretty dynamic game, with Fabiano finding all the right moves to keep the position in balance. Here, he had to find another precise one in order to keep equality. With the last move, Gukesh played queen to d4, threatening to win the pawn on d2. Here, Black had to decide whether he should protect the d2 pawn or look for counterplay. The problem is that queen c2 doesn't actually save the pawn. White would still pick it up on the next move after rook d1 and rook d2 coming. That's why Black had to go for counterplay and attack the e4 pawn. The correct move in the position was knight to g6, opening up the way for the rook on the e8. However, some complications arise after the move bishop f5. Defending the pawn on e4 and creating a super annoying pen for the g6 knight. Game could have continued with queen c2, threatening a discovered attack and queening the pawn, king h3, and here Black had to find an only move to stay in the game. He had to go for rook f8, hitting the bishop. Seemingly, this loses material after bishop takes g6, king g6, with the black rook hanging. But White simply cannot take it. In the case of rook takes f8, d1 queen would win the game for Black, and if queen d6, Black's king is fully safe after rook f6. The game would likely end in a draw in a couple moves. However, this is pretty difficult to assess, and especially with the move rook f8 appearing in the line. That's why Fabiano went for another attack on the pawn, hitting the bishop at the same time with queen to g6. Turns out though that after rook f4, White is simply much better because he wins the d2 pawn for free. The game continued with queen g5, setting up a trap. In case of queen d2, there would be knight g6, hitting the rook and taking advantage of the pin. But Gukesh found another solution. He played the move h4. h4 here, getting rid of the queen first and only then taking on d2. So the game continued with queen g6, queen takes d2, rook b8, and queen d7. With the last move, Gukesh is exploiting the weakness of the light squares, as he's trying to push the knight away so that he can play the move bishop takes f5. Well, black simply cannot afford losing the queen, so he hit the bishop on his move, playing the move h5. Game continued with bishop e6, rook b6, continuing the attack on the bishop, and bishop f7. Fabiano played the move queen d6, and after all the exchanges, he found himself 2 pawns down in an endgame. The game didn't last much longer, and only after a couple of moves, Fabiano resigned to Gukesh. This one opened up the result for India and gave them the lead in such an important match. For the next game of our recap, we're going to take a look at how Erigaisi sealed the deal for Team India. Here we are with the first critical moment of the Arjun Erigaisi versus Lenier Dominguez game. So far, things have been going pretty smoothly for Erigaisi, as he has managed to get all the important squares under control, and he is about to win the c6 pawn. Here, the young Indian superstar played the move knight to b6, hoping to ease his transition into a winning endgame. The point is that after rook a b8, knight takes d7, takes, and queen takes c6, the resulting endgame would be completely winning for white. Seeing all of that, Dominguez decided to try something else, and he offered an exchange for Erigaisi to take. He played the move c5. The game saw knight takes a8, rook takes a8, and knight to b5. Fast forward a couple of moves, we got the next critical position of the game right here. It appears that black has consolidated the position with his central pawns safely defended. There are no open files for the white rooks, and maybe black will still be in the game. However, Erigaisi found a clever way to open up files for his rooks. He played the move e4, taking advantage of some tactics. The problem with d4, for example, would be that after rook takes d4, black cannot recapture because of the pin. Another move that doesn't work is d takes e4, because white would be able to win a piece after rook d6. That's why Lenier Dominguez decided to go for knight e4, giving up his own d-pawn in exchange. So Erigaisi just took it. The next couple of moves represented some maneuvering, and we got to another critical position all the way right here. So it is skipping a couple moves, but this is the important moment. In this position, white only needs to trade queens to go into a safe endgame where there would be no trouble converting to a full point. That's why Erigaisi played the move h4, trying to weaken the black king and go for such a transition. The game continued with g takes h4, queen e4, takes on h4, and queen g3, finally transposing into a trivially winning position. The game ended quickly, as here the black pawns are simply too weak, so Arjun won them all. So here in this position, Dominguez finally resigned, giving up the game and also making sure that India finally wins the Olympiad. Once again, congratulations to the Indian team, and let's see the next game of our recap. For the last game of the open section we have for today, I want to highlight the incredible performance of the Slovenian team as they're now sensationally in third place. This is the game that brought them the team victory. As white, Jan Benjamin Bach from the Netherlands is taking on black's Matej Sebenik. The last move of the game has been knight to e2, as white is trying to bring more defenses to his king. However, turns out that this is a little bit too late, as black already had a way to exploit the weakness of the king. Sebenik played the move knight to g4, hitting the pawn on h2. He is taking advantage of the fact that the f-pawn is spinned and also that the rook from g2 cannot capture the knight because of mate on h2. Here, white was forced to sacrifice a piece and had to go for knight f4, giving up a knight for 2 pawns. The game continued with e takes f4, bishop f4, and now knight e5 hits the queen, not allowing white to take on h6. So here, it is actually not the material balance that is white's problem. He has more than enough pawns for the piece. The problem is that his king is still extremely weak, and this is what decided the result. Fast forward a couple of moves. We go to this position, and here we can tell that the only defender the white king has is the bishop on g3. So that's why, after h4, black took the pawn, bishop takes h4, and is further threatening to take on f2 as well. The game continued with queen d6, check on e1, king h2, and bishop g3. Now, in the case of queen g3, we would see rook f2 with checkmate in the next couple of moves. But if white continues the game with rook g3, as it happened, this doesn't improve the situation either. The game continued with queen f2, queen h4, and here black was still with a devastating attack. On the next move, he would play something like knight h4 and it would be game over. That's why the move rook takes g6 was pure desperation by white. The game ended with queen g6, takes, and here the white pawns are still not advanced enough to create problem for the black rook. The game ended quickly with a5, rook b8, d6, takes, and the rook is now in time to stop both the pawns. Congratulations to Matej Sebenik as he brought this victory to Team Slovenia, and now they have an actual chance for the medals. However, we still have lots of action to unpack, so let's jump to the women's section. In the women's section, round 10 couldn't be more dramatic either. Current leaders Team Kazakhstan were taking on second seed Team Georgia, and the match was hanging by a thread the entire time. On the last board, the Georgians were pressing hard, but Kazakhstan Alua Nurmanova found a way to secure a draw and save her team. Meanwhile, top seed India managed to thrill their fans after pulling a 2.5-1.5 victory versus the strong Team China. Team Poland also kept their supporters happy as they scored 2.5-1.5 to win their match as well. However, the most dramatic match of the day by far was Ukraine versus USA. At first, it appeared like it would be smooth sailing for the American ladies as they enjoyed better positions on practically every board. However, the Ukrainian women found a way to fight back and almost tied their match. Here is when USA team leader Begging Tokhirjonova pulled a brilliant trick and cracked what appeared to be a fortress to win the game and secure the 2.5-1.5 result. Let's see how it all happened and check out the best of today's games. The first game we're going to take a look at is from the top board match, Georgia versus Kazakhstan. Here we have the last position that is standing from the match. As black, Bella Khotenashvili is trying to break through and deliver a victory for her team. After some missed chances, she arrived at this position, where everything is blocked, but black is still the one who has the chance to try and push for a win. The problem is, she cannot take effectively advantage of the two pawns that are weak in white's camp. After a lot of back and forth, she decided that maybe the way to go through was by a piece sacrifice, and Bella played the move knight takes b2, giving up the knight for two pawns. The game continued with knight takes b2, rook a3, and rook d1. The problem is that even if white is a piece up, the knight on b2 is still very poorly placed. So it is still black who is playing for a win. The game continued with rook a2, rook b1, rook h8, king d2, just some back and forth, and we came to the position with b4. Now, the only thing that white needs to be careful is not to trade pawns and let the black king in the game. That's why Nurmanova kept sitting in one place and played the move rook h2. After a lot of back and forth, the next position where black tried to do something was right here. So she decided that maybe if she gave away the rook from a2 for the knight, then the king will finally have a place to come through. That's why Bella played the move rook takes b2 and followed with king to a4. It is the same idea. White doesn't want to take on b4 and allow the advance of the c-pawn. So that's why she just kept sitting. The game continued with rook b1, king a3, rook h1, and again, the position is still a fortress. Even though black is a full rook down, the b-pawns are so strong that white cannot take advantage of the extra material. So after a couple more moves, it was obvious that neither side would be able to prevail. So here, the players finally agreed to a draw. Wow, I mean, if this is not an extraordinary draw, I don't know what is. But this game kept Kazakhstan's dream alive. So let's wish them luck for the next rounds and see the next game of the recap. On the board, we have another critical game from a tough match. As white, we have international master Divya Deshmukh from India, and as black, we have China's woman grandmaster Shiqun. Let's take a look. So here, it is pretty obvious that white is the one who's playing for a win. She simply has the superior placed pieces. The queen on f4 is pretty annoying, creating pressure on black's king side. The rook on e5 is controlling both the e file and also attacking h5. And in addition to that, with the last move g4, white is trying to create a passed pawn. The game saw the continuation h takes g5, f takes g5, and here black sacrificed the pawn with g5. The problem was that in case of any other move, white would be able to march her h-pawn all the way to h7, and it doesn't appear that black would be able to do anything to stop her. That's why Ni decided to sacrifice a pawn here and make sure at least white doesn't get a passed pawn. The problems that arise for black, though, are also not minimal. After g5, white has full control of the h-file and also can push g6 at any moment, taking advantage of the fact that the bishop from e6 is only defended by the f7 pawn. So that would mean that once the white pawn makes it to g6, it would be invincible, because if f takes g6, the rook will take the bishop. The game continued with rook h8 as Ni was trying to oppose white on the h-file. Divya played rook h6, simply maintaining pressure. And here, in time trouble, Shiqun just fell apart and played a blunder. She played the move rook to d6. Famous for her tactical vision, Divya quickly found a refutation on the move and blitzed out rook takes h8. After queen takes h8, she finished the game in style, playing the move rook takes e6. The point is that in case of rook e6, she would have the move queen f7, hitting both the king and the rook and remaining a piece up in an endgame. Seeing all of that, Shiqun surrendered the game and China lost the match to India. Well, that's another win for Divya Deshmukh, who is now a top performer on her board and is saving India in numerous matches in the Olympiad so far. Let's see who is going to prevail in tomorrow's round as Kazakhstan and India share first place, and jump to the last game of today's recap. The last game of our recap is from board 1 of the USA versus Ukraine match. As white, we have international master Begim Tokhirjonova, and as black, we have international master Yulia Osmak. Now, if we count the pieces on the board, we can tell that white has a huge material advantage. She has a full queen, while black only has a rook. However, don't be deceived. With correct play on the board, the position is a draw. The reason for that is there isn't a way for white to break through. Black's rooks would remain on the f-file, supporting one another, with one of them constantly watching over the g7 square. Even if white picks up the b5 pawn, this is simply not relevant and wouldn't change anything. However, in this position, Yulia decided to trade a pair of rooks and went for the move rook to g5. After rook takes g5, h takes g5, Begim had a resource to finally break down the fortress as she played the move h6. Now, in case of any other move, let's say king h3, everyone who has looked at endgames will know that black was in time to make a draw with rook f6. The reason is that the pawn on g7 supports the rook, and once black moves rook h6, rook f6, there isn't a white to bring the king and deliver checkmate. That's why here it is extremely important to play h6 and get rid of the g7 pawn. So Begim blitzed it out. The game continued with rook f6, h takes g7, king g7, and king g4. Note that black cannot play rook f4 because of the pin of the rook. So the game saw king g6, and white soon picked up the g5 pawn with a series of checks. So it went like queen e4, check, check, and king g5. The only other pawn on the board, b5, is also not going to remain alive for much longer, which, proved to be the case, and Begim picked it up on the next couple of moves. However, the next critical moment I want to show you comes right here on move 77. So in order to win the game, what white needs to do is force the black rook away from the king. And the way she can do that is with a famous zugzwang. So the game continued with queen h4 check, king g8, and now after queen h5, Black is forced to move the rook away, as she cannot play rook f7 nor rook h7. The game saw rook g1, and after a series of checks, white simply picked up the rook. So there we go, queen h2, and it was game over. Congratulations to Begim, Team USA, and every other team who won today. Thank you all for watching, and keep following as we present you the action from the last round tomorrow on ICC.